Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Yashodanandan Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandan Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandan Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So today, I'll be reading from Bhagavad Gita, as it is, chapter 8, text 6. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajat yante kalevaram tam tam evaiti konteya sadatad bhava bhavataha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Purport. The process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. A person who at the end of his life quits his body thinking of Krishna attains the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. But it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than Krishna attains the same transcendental state. This is a point we should note very carefully. How can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaja Bharata, although a great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life. So in his next life, he was transferred into the body of a deer. Although as a deer he remembered his past activities, he had to accept the animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulates to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one present life one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. And that will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendentally absorbed in Krishna service, then his next body will be transcendental or spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Hitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna. So, what are we doing here? What are we doing at the Hare Krishna temple? Are we here just to look like pious people? Are we here just to look like good devotees? So why are we here? There are a million things that we can do with our time, so why did we choose to come here? Is this our once a week day to come to the temple? Did our family ask us to come here? Were we forced to come here? So why are we here? That is the billion-dollar question. Is coming to the temple a burden? Is coming here seem to be like unfavorable to us? Is work more important than coming to the temple? So what is our intention and motivation to come here? It says that Krishna is non-different from his name, his form, his pastimes. So when we're here in the temple, we're actually seeing Krishna. That's a fact. So when we are standing before Krishna, what are we asking from him? What are we praying for? Are we praying for success in our work life, success in our child's future, success in our finances? What are we asking from Krishna? These are noble requests, but we should know that anything material, will ultimately have a beginning and an end. So whether we know it or not, we're actually praying for temporary success. There's a pastime of a great devotee. His name is Dhruva Maharaj. And Dhruva Maharaj, he was not the favorite son of the father. the father, King Uttanapad, he had 2 wives. And unfortunately, Dhruva took birth in the wife that was not the favorite of the king. So when the king came back, Dhruva Maharaj, just like a son, he wanted to sit on the lap of his father. But the king refused to, actually, the stepmother told him, you can't sit on your father's lap. You're not the favorite son. And they said, if you want to sit on your father's lap, you have to take birth in my womb. She was very arrogant to say this to a little boy. So Dhruva Maharaj, he went to his mother crying. And it's described that he was hissing like a snake. Because when you trample or step on a snake, it hisses. So similarly, Dhruva Maharaj, he was feeling like that. So Dhruva's mother, she told Dhruva that if you want to get the favor of the Lord, you have to go to the forest and to perform austerities. So he was on his way to the forest, and that's when, it's a long story, pastime, but Narada Muni, he told him you should do some deity worship. Make a deity form of Krishna in the form of clay, and you should worship it. So ultimately, when Dhruva Maharaj, when he finally got the darshan of Lord Vishnu, this is what he said. My dear Lord, I have practiced austerities and penances because I was desiring to receive something from you. But in exchange, you have allowed me to see you, who are never visible even to the great sages and saintly persons. I have been searching out some glass, but instead I have found the most valuable jewel. I am therefore fully satisfied, my Lord. I do not wish to ask anything more from your Lordship. So, in the beginning, Dhruva Maharaj, he had a very selfish material desire. He wanted a greater and better kingdom than his father, King Uttanapad, and greater than his grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, and greater than his great-grandfather, which is Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma was the first created being. You can say he's the creator of this universe. And so he wanted this very big kingdom, and ultimately he considered it to be like broken pieces of glass. So what to speak of our little selfish desires when we come before Krishna? It's worthless. And to see Krishna's form is very difficult to obtain. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that seeing this divine four-handed form of mine is very difficult. But more difficult than that is to see my two-handed form, his original form. So Krishna, who can cut the chain of the repetition of birth and death, who can award eternal blissful life, instead we're asking for broken glass when we're in front of him. So again, what are we asking from Krishna when we are before him? All the great sages, devotees, saints, they have concluded that if we are given the chance to render pure devotional service to Krishna and to love him without any material motivation is considered the highest goal one can have. So we should seriously pray, please give me the privilege of devotional service. And there was a very wonderful devotee who has left his body. His name is Rajendra Nandana Prabhu. So he told me this nice story of Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya. He told me that Srila Prabhupada had a disciple, and the disciple was very sincere. But when he got married, they needed money. And his wife told him, go see if Prabhupada can pay you for your services, whether it's a pujari. And Srila Prabhupada, when he heard this, Srila Prabhupada began to cry. He said, devotional service is supposed to be a privilege. So it's not a common thing to be able to serve Krishna. And to do service for the Lord is a golden opportunity. We shouldn't miss it. And this always reminds me of a story of King Indra, who is considered the king of all the heavenly planets. He made a great offense to his spiritual master, Brihaspati, and he was cursed to take the body of a hog here on earth. And so when the post of the king of heaven was vacant, Lord Brahma came to Lord King Indra and he told him, my dear king, go back to your heavenly planet. Your curse is now lifted. But what did King Indra say? He said, no, why should I go back? I have responsibilities here. I have my piglet, I have my wife, I have my friends, I don't want to go back. So similarly, Krishna is telling us, Sarva Dharman Prityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. He says, please give up all these so-called other duties and just surrender to Krishna. He'll protect us. But we are saying no. We want to remain here in this world of birth and death. And Srila Prabhupada, he says, I gave buckets of blood to start this movement. The Hare Krishna temple is actually very rare, like a diamond. And he didn't have to come to the West, Srila Prabhupada. He was in Vrindavan. And most devotees who, after taking sannyas or finish family and work engagements, they retire in Vrindavan. That's considered to be the best place to practice spiritual life. So why? Why did Srila Prabhupada come here? He didn't have to. But he came here to follow the orders of his spiritual master, to deliver us, the fallen and conditioned souls. We're so conditioned. Just like there's a disease called jaundice. Most people, they know it by the yellowing of the eyes or the skin. But there's a strange phenomenon about jaundice. Something sweet will taste very bitter. So if you eat sugar candy or sugar cane juice, it will taste bitter. But the medicine is to keep taking sweets. And once you keep taking sweets, the tongue will naturally develop its taste for sweetness. So similarly, we may not be interested in topics of Krishna, his glories, his pastimes, reading about him, but by nature it is sweet. So this is called conditioned life or diseased. And how often are we reading Srila Prabhupada's books? How often are we preaching to our family and friends about Krishna consciousness? This is considered the topmost dharma. And what types of thoughts do we come in the temple? What has come to our minds when we came here? Are we thinking about making more money? Are we thinking about who is my son or daughter going to marry? What am I going to do this weekend? Or when is this guy going to stop talking? So what is occupying our minds? And they say that the face is the index of the mind. The face reveals how we really feel inside. So when we hear about Krishna, how do we react? And when I go out on book distribution, it's very difficult to get Indian body people to take books. One thing they tell me is, I know about Krishna. I know about Krishna. My grandfather and my grandmother told me about stories of Krishna. But when I ask them, what is the difference between Lord Vishnu, Krishna, Shiva, and Lord Brahma, they say they're all the same. But this is actually a big offense, to consider Krishna in the same category as the demigods, like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Krishna is the original source of everything. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. Everything rests upon me. So I would like to tell a story. This ticket attendant, he was walking in the train one time, and he found a wallet. And within this wallet, he wanted to see whose wallet it belonged to. So he kept turning, and there was a picture of Krishna. So when he asked, whose wallet is this? There was an old man that stepped up and he said, that's my wallet. So the ticket attendant asked him, how do I know you're not lying? How do I know this is yours? So the old man, he narrated his story. He said, when I was young, and I had a little wallet, and I kept my parents' picture in there, because at that time, they were the most important people in my life. And then when I grew older, I replaced my parents' picture with the picture of my wife. At that time, I considered my wife to be the most important person. And then when I had grandchildren or kids, I put their picture in my wallet. and I considered them to be the most important people in my life. And then when I got grandkids, I put their picture. And at that time, they were the most important people in my life. And as time went on, my wife, she passed away. So I took her picture out. And then my sons and daughter, they were too busy for me. So I took their picture out. And my grandkids, they're also involved in working, they're involved in marriage, situating their life together. And I learned that if I had this picture of Krishna my whole life, I would know who my actual best friend is. Krishna never leaves us. He's in the heart of every living entity. And so this old man said, if I had kept this picture of Krishna, it would have prevented me from being so lonely at this moment of my life. When all of our friends, our family, when they can no longer be with us, who's there for us? Depression and suicide are actually big problems. And I did a research. Every 40 seconds, someone commits suicide. So I've been speaking for almost 20 minutes. So I don't know how many people have killed themselves. So, and in the purport, it says that, of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thought at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If a child refuses to help or refuses to obey the orders of his parents, if he steals money and spends it on something destructive, then what is the value of such child? He is considered to be an enemy of the family. So similarly, since we are all part and parcel of Krishna, it is our dharma, our duty to serve Krishna, not just to take from him. We actually have to give something to Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna, and whatever he has allowed us to use should be used in his service. That will make us, the spirit soul, happy. Krishna is the life and goal of the living entity, and we should realize that. And it mentioned about Maharaja Bharata. Maharaja Bharata, he was a great devotee. But on the account of being too affectionate for a fawn, a small deer, he was thinking of the deer at the time of death. So he was forced to accept the body of a deer. So this is telling us the art of dying. Whatever one is attached to in this life, he will naturally think of that thing when death approaches. So when a man is too attached to a woman, he accepts a woman's body. And here in America, so many people are attracted to their dog. So at the time of death, when they're thinking about their dog, who's feeding my dog, what is my dog doing, they will take the body of a dog. I was distributing books today in La Jolla Cove, and I was explaining to these two Matajis the transmigration of the soul, how our thoughts actually affect our next life, what type of body we have. And the answer that she gave me was very tragic. She said, I want to be a dog in my next life. So I told her, look at your dog. Is it happy? It's leashed to it has a leash on it most of the time. It cannot go anywhere. It will wait for you until it gets food. And on top of that, it will eat its own stool if nothing is there for him to eat. And animals actually live simply by instincts. When a dog is hungry, they look for food. So similarly, a human being, we're given the higher intelligence to make better decisions in life. And so she considered having the body of a deer or a body of a dog to be the best body to have. And I told her that's very pathetic, I told her. Because sometimes when we're preaching, we have to use strong words to cut their illusion, their attachments. So Srila Prabhupada, he would also do this when he was preaching. He would be very critical to bogus yogis or so-called spiritual teachers that misguide the people. He would call them cheaters, he would call them rascals. So this young lady, she didn't know the value of human life. The soul is transmigrating from one body of species to another. And among 8,400,000 types of bodies, the human birth is considered to be the most rarest and the most precious. Because in the human form of life, it's a way to break, or you can say be liberated from the bondage of karma. Since we took birth, we have performed so many activities, so we can only imagine how many accumulated reactions we have to suffer or enjoy. And Krishna, He's so kind. He gives us free will or little independence. So He doesn't mess with that, so it's up to us. We always have options. What pictures to put up, what songs to listen to, what to read, what to watch. So these, throughout time, will accumulate our last thoughts at the time of death. We should make it a priority to always think of Krishna, to always remember Krishna. In this way, we will be able to go back home, back to Godhead, back to Krishna, to live eternally in bliss and knowledge. And lastly, I would like to conclude by telling a story of this king. This king, as kings do, they have unlimited facilities for sense enjoyment. And this king received a call from the doctor one day. The doctor said, "You have a terminal illness. Please prepare yourself for this final journey." So this king had 4 queens. The first queen, whatever this queen wanted, the king would always satisfy her. Whenever she wanted something, the king would make sure it was fulfilled. And this king called this queen and said, "My dear queen, I'm making this final journey to the next world. Would you please accompany me?" And this queen, she was very well taken care of by the king. So naturally the king thought, "She will surely go with me." But the queen responded no, and she walked away. So the king was very heartbroken. So he called the second queen, and the second queen, wherever the king went, he would bring with her to show her off. Wherever he went, he would say, "This is my queen, look how beautiful she is." So when the king called this queen and asked her if she can come with him in this final hour, she said no. And she said, "As a matter of fact, when you die, I'm going to marry someone else." So the king was not only was he heartbroken, but this queen shot an arrow to his heart. So the third queen represented someone that the king can have confidential talks with. This queen, she would always give him guidance, some comfort. And when the king asked her if she can come with them to this final journey, the queen responded, "I would like to go with you, king, but I can only stay in the funeral pyre. I cannot go with you." So the king was very morose, he was very heartbroken, and he forgot about this last queen. And this last queen, although she was neglected, she was very malnourished, she was hardly skin and bones. Without even asking, this queen appeared. And so the king was very surprised. He said, "My queen, why are you here?" And then so this queen said, "I will happily go with you." So these 4 queens have representations, or they have meaning to it. The first queen that represented, the king gave whatever this queen wanted, represents the body that we have. The body, it requires, it's always asking something from us. It's too cold, so we put on a jacket. It's too warm, we take it off. So whatever desire this body wants, we fulfill it. But ultimately, at the time of death, we can't bring this body with us. And the second queen, which the king was very proud of, represented wealth. We can't bring our wealth in our next life. And when the queen said, "I will marry someone else," that's true. When we leave, our wealth either goes to someone else, to our family member, or even someone we don't like. So that's the second queen. And the third queen, someone that gave him guidance, someone that comforted him during harsh or difficult times, represented our friends and family. They can support us, but they can't ultimately go with us at the time of death. And this last queen represents our dharma, or our relationship with Krishna. Even though we neglected Krishna for so long, he's always there with us in the heart. And so this king, he felt very embarrassed, he felt very, you can say, regretful that he had not spent time with this queen. And so, similarly, we should always think of Krishna. Krishna's in our heart. He gives us the intelligence. He gives us the ability. So Krishna's everything. And just like this king, he was able to spend time with this queen for as many days as he could. Okay, that's all. Any questions, comments, or corrections? Okay. I think we're going to have Tulsi Puja. Okay. Does anyone? Okay. When I first pursued spiritual life, I got to know the devotees. I got to know the philosophy. And I was always thinking, when can I move into the temple? When will I be able to dedicate my life to serving Krishna? I understood this. I was completely convinced because of Srila Prabhupada's books. But unfortunately, there are many people out there that don't even know who Krishna is. They know of God, but they don't know about God. See, the word God is actually a title, it's a post. But within God, there's a person, there's a personality behind it. And the Vedas, they give us God's name, which is Krishna. Krishna means the all-attractive one. And Krishna possesses 6 opulences to an unlimited degree. He's in full in wealth, fame, strength, knowledge, renunciation, and beauty. So the name Krishna signifies that. In this material world, whenever we find someone attractive, or beautiful, we find them attractive. When someone's very strong, we find them attractive. When someone's wealthy, we find them attractive. When someone's very knowledgeable, we find them attractive. And when someone's very renounced or detached, we find them attractive. Therefore, if we can give God any name, it would be Krishna, the most all-attractive, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. I'll tell some more Sankirtan stories. Today I met this lady. She was Christian. So she wasn't going to take a book. She wasn't going to stop at my table. So I asked her, what's more important, billions of dollars or having peace of mind? So naturally, if someone's thoughtful, they will say peace of mind, of course. Because if the mind is full of stress, anxiety, worries, shame, doubt, guilt, regrets, jealousy, envy, hatred, you can't sleep at night. So she understood this concept. So she stayed there and she was listening. So we spoke about karma, reincarnation. We also spoke about duty, about living an honorable life, full of sacrifice. She actually appreciated Krishna consciousness. And then she said, although I'm Christian, I really believe what you're doing is nice. So I told her we practice 4 regulative principles. Maybe I shouldn't name it. But so she said, that's amazing. So I told her, yes, we're trying to purify this existence so we can enter the kingdom of God. Krishna is very pure, so we can't enter unless we're pure in heart. And at the end, she actually sat down in front of my table. She was listening and listening. And at the end, I gave her a book. She was elderly, so I thought to myself, what would be the best book to give her? So I gave her a small book. It's called Beyond Birth and Death. So I handed it to her and I asked her, if you could please take the time, my humble request is to take the time to read this book. And I told her it will free you from so much anxiety. Because the Bible, we don't criticize other scriptures. That's not good. But Srila Prabhupada says there is better, best, and better, or good, better, and best. So the Bible is good. It tells us, to do well. But the Bhagavad Gita and our Shastra, they're actually complete. They're full. They give us full details about the spiritual world, what heaven and hell is, Any type of question that we have, it has all the answers. The Bhagavad Gita is very amazing. If you don't have Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada, I highly recommend getting one. Or if you have one, give it to a friend. Help the book distributors. Okay? I guess we're going to pass up prasadam. Okay. Hare Krishna. Our glories to Srila Prabhupada.